But yeah, someone literally asked me, they're like, "How does it feel that the Angels used all 20 of their picks on pitchers?" And I was like, "Dude, have you ever gone to Vegas and you keep throwing, a couple bucks on black and you're like, 10 Reds came up in a row. It's got to be black this time. It's got to hit soon." And it's like one of those draft picks has to be an all-star, right?
I mean, you'd hope so. You would hope so. It's what they desperately need right now. So,
Yeah, that's all I can hope for. Welcome to Our Factual Opinion, the podcast where your co-hosts Zachary Nikolai and Tyler McGee give you their factual opinion on all things sports. Tyler, I've already been telling you about the Angels. It was exciting. Happy July 13th, by the way. It is the day after the home run derby. The great Shohei Ohtani was the number one seed for the home run derby. He is going to be a lot of history here for you. He is the first baseball player to be an all-star as a pitcher and a hitter. He will be the first baseball player ever to be the starting pitcher and the leadoff hitter in an all-star game. And he's just the best thing to ever happen to baseball. So to start off our show, I would like to start with Double Take. You guys watch on ESPN First Take, Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman. Stephen A. Smith said maybe the worst thing I have heard him say. And let me start by saying this. Stephen A. is a brilliant reporter. He is a brilliant journalist. I think he writes better than he talks. When he used to write about basketball, I he's a wizard with his words. He is a fantastic journalist. Now, when he goes on his shows, sometimes all he does is yell, and if he's louder than Max, he thinks he's right. And so in this instance, Tyler, yesterday before the home run derby, he brought the worst press to himself and the Asian community when basically asked, is Ohtani being the number one attraction for baseball the best thing for MLB? In short term, he basically said someone who needs an interpreter who does not speak the English language should not be the face of baseball. And I was visibly upset for about 4 hours yesterday. I was fuming because he is the best thing since Babe Ruth. He's gonna be better than Babe Ruth. I might wanna pump the brakes on that, but he's better than him. He goes out there. Hell, he went and he was the number one seed in the home run derby yesterday, and now he's gonna go out and pitch less than 24 hours later. He is a super freak. He goes out on the field, and baseball is the language that he speaks. He People flock to their televisions. I bet you if I played an audio clip for you of how Mike Trout sounds or how Jacob DeGrom sounds, you wouldn't be able to tell me that it's them. And they speak English. Shohei speaks English. It's pretty good English. He just feels more comfortable with an interpreter. So for Stephen A to come out and say, hey, you can't be the face of baseball because you don't speak the English language and you have an interpreter, absolutely ridiculous. And then he later on went on Twitter and pretty much doubled down. He didn't apologize until later. He doubled down and said, you guys didn't listen. I wasn't attacking the game of baseball. I was just saying, in response to Sports Illustrated's article, 28% of the league is now foreign players. So with 28% of the league being foreign players, don't you think that maybe one of them can be the face of the league?
I
Like,
mean,
come on, Steven.
I think it's kind of ridiculous to say that he can't be the face of the league, especially because he is very globally known now. He's international player putting MLB on a global scale. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I didn't understand the take. I just I don't know. I think maybe some of it has to do with him also being in the Angels market because Anaheim, not necessarily the biggest market, but
Los Angeles. We're the Los
Los
Angeles Angels.
Angeles, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I'm sorry.
Thank you. But it makes zero sense though, Tyler. And I'll give this. I do believe that Stephen A understands what he said now. He went and he released something on Twitter. It was a notes app. Anytime you see notes on Twitter, it's a huge apology. I
hmm
think that's just the culture we're in. If you see that, it's going to be something. And so saw it. I wasn't too impressed with it. I kind of read it and I was like, okay, like I don't think this is you. And then he went on First Take today and he gave It's a 5-minute clip. I would say it's about 4 minutes of apology and then about a minute of him kind of saying some other stuff. But you know what? He is a guy who I truly believe he didn't mean harm, and he went on to say, like, "This isn't what I intended," and he goes, "But I don't wanna keep saying that because that's always racist first things where they say, 'That wasn't my intention to be hurtful.'" So for him to kind of identify like, "Hey, I'm a black man. I know injustice. I know all this other stuff. I know how there can be a community that's marginalized, and for me to do that, I feel bad." And so for him to step up, acknowledge that he was wrong, and not only acknowledge it, but publicly apologize to Shohei individually, to his company. I didn't even think he had to apologize to ESPN and Disney and Max and Molly, but he did. He
That's
apologized to his
good.
co-host, the host, the producers, ESPN, everything, and and he owned it. So a horrible thing that he said yesterday on First Take. Today, I accept the apology, but the old saying,
Hmm.
forgive, never forget. You know, Stephen A. I know my opinion doesn't mean anything to you. I forgive you for your horrible take, but I'm not going to forget it, man. Shohei's the face of the league.
Yeah, truly. I mean, he's an electric player, bringing out the best of baseball. He's honestly what I pictured what watching Babe Ruth would be like, but like you said, even better. He honestly should have been the first to pitch to himself in the home run derby yesterday, but that could be another topic for another day. All
Dude,
right,
I would
so
have rather just had the Phillies bullpen just lob them some. They do that for real games anyways.
for our undisputed with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless. Yesterday or today, Skip said that he thinks it's crazy that the 76ers would even consider dealing Ben Simmons, which I think that's crazy that you wouldn't consider it at all because right now, I mean, you saw his playoff performances. I feel bad for him. He's getting a lot of hate. You know, he's in his own head mentally, but right now the NBA is a shooters league and Ben Simmons is not a shooter. I mean, dang, he wouldn't even take an open dunk in the playoffs, but it's all good. But like I said, Skip, I think, is pretty crazy for them not wanting to trade Ben Simmons. I mean, a change of scenery for Ben could be really good. And right now, the 76ers are in win now. The process is, well, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere with Ben Simmons anymore. I think it's time to deal him. And it's not like he's a bad player. He averaged last season 14, 7, and about 7, which is really good stat lines. But for what the 76ers need, they need a point guard that can shoot. They need someone who's going to be reliable in the fourth quarter because in the playoffs, he virtually disappeared in the fourth quarter. He had like 2 shots every fourth quarter against the Hawks in that series, which is not what you want from your starting point guard. And you see an analysis of him every time it was he's going to pass it off to Seth Curry, set a screen, and then run down to the block. And that's about all he did on offense for the rest of the time. And that's not good for the 76ers. They're, like I said, they're in win now mode. It's time for them to make a trade. And I don't know. What do you think about this, Zach?
I've never understood the term untradeable. Like, I think everybody's tradable in football except for maybe 2 guys. In baseball, I think except for maybe 4 guys, everyone, is tradable. Basketball, I used to say that there was about 5. I'm at the point now where it's like, you know what, LeBron, I love LeBron. I think he's still a top 3 player in this league.
I don't think you should go here, Zach.
Dude, finally got injured, Anthony Davis, people were like, "Oh, he's great." Well, he was traded there. If I was the Lakers, I'd flip him. I already got a championship out of him. Like, I'd flip him. Damian Lillard, I would think is untradeable, but obviously he's unhappy. So what's happening? There's trade talks. Steph Curry, I think Steph and like 2 other guys might be the only untradeable players in the league. So don't tell me that Ben Simmons trading him is an awful idea. Now don't go trading him for peanuts.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but come on, thinking of trading Ben Simmons is unthinkable. Stop it.
Listen, like my thing is right now, you you need someone who can step up and score. And Ben Simmons can facilitate the ball, plays great defense, just can't shoot it. And I don't think if you have Joel Embiid right now in his prime, you want a player who you're talking about possibly switching his shooting hands a couple 5 years or so, 4 years or so into his career. Like that's not something you want with Ben or with Joel Embiid right now. And honestly, I think the 76ers fan base is just over him. I think mentally, I don't think he's going to want to play another game in Philadelphia because I mean, you saw on Twitter, people were yelling F Ben Simmons. People were burning his jersey already, and he hasn't even been traded. Or usually you burn a jersey after your star player leaves the team. You know what I mean? He's still on the team, and people were burning his jersey. I think it's just time for them to move on. I think the 76ers fan base is over him. Sounded like Doc Rivers was over him. I mean, I just think it's time to finally move on from him, unfortunately, for the 76ers, who they thought he was the next reincarnation of LeBron James. But hey, like I
Forgot those
say,
talks.
I think a change of scenery is always good for a player. If he gets traded, he's gonna have a great season, I think.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean,
Yeah.
God, I forgot people were like, "This is the next LeBron. Look at him." Oh
Yeah.
yeah, they compared him to Magic because he
They
wasn't
compared
able
to
to
Magic,
shoot, and
he's
they,
6'10 point
yeah,
guard, 6'10 point guard who could pass. I mean, he's only 24, I think. So that's he's still really young. It's just I just think it's time for them to move on because we saw what happened in this playoffs and
you know
he
what? I
was
wish he
getting
went to the
ridiculed.
Olympics.
Played
I
for
do.
Australia?
I don't care who you play for. I just want him to go out there and get more reps. That's literally it, man. It's you're out here. You know what I would have done is I would if I was Doc Rivers, I would have
Mhm.
took him and said, "Go play for Australia, New Zealand. I don't care where you go play. Go play for somebody, and you
Right?
shoot the
Is it
ball every time you
Australia
get."
or am I tripping?
It's Australia. But
Okay.
it, I don't care where he goes and plays. Just shoot the ball. That's what I'd tell him.
Which hand is he shooting with though?
Switch it up nightly.
Both?
I don't care.
Both?
Figure out something that works for you though. That's what I'd tell him. I'd say I don't want to use you for preseason. I don't want you to work on yourself in a gym and everything. No, go against live bodies. Shoot the ball every chance you get.
Don't pass it. Just shoot. We know you can pass. Get your
Yeah,
shots up.
Australia is not winning at all. You know what I mean? So it's
And
like
they just
go
beat us
use
in an
that to work on
exhibition
you.
game.
Yeah.
Uh, moving on, got some more basketball talk. NBA Finals. Our next segment from First Things First. Nick isn't always right. Did I get that right, Zach?
With an R, not a W. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we're gonna move over to Nick Wright basically saying that if the Bucks happen to lose this NBA Finals and Giannis continues to perform at the level that he's performing at, Giannis should still win Finals MVP, which isn't crazy to see the numbers he's putting up. Still early in the series, a lot can happen, but I just don't think you can give a Finals MVP to a player on a team that loses in the finals. Now, I know you said maybe you could talk this after, and I said maybe if it goes seven, because the only other person, everyone who watches the NBA knows this, the only other person who's ever won the Finals MVP on a losing team was Jerry West back in about, I think, 1969 when they lost to the Celtics in Game 7. And in that series, Jerry West averaged 37. He had four rebounds a game, 7 assists a game. That is some pretty crazy numbers, but I just think you can't give the finals MVP to someone who just lost in the finals. We talk so heavily on the regular season MVP. You don't deserve the regular season MVP if your team is losing, right? That's pretty like common thing right now in the NBA. So how can you give the finals MVP to someone who loses? What do you think, Zach?
So let's just shed some light on Jerry West real quick. People are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this bum, like he shouldn't be the logo anymore." Okay, averaging 37 in a series in the 60s, like that's insane. Guys weren't doing that except for the logo. So Jerry West definitely deserved. There's probably only one other player in history, and that's LeBron back against the
Yep.
Warriors
I have that
when
right
they
here.
lost in game 7. Like he was, he, correct me
Game
if I'm wrong,
6.
he led both teams in everything:
Yeah, he
points,
led.
rebounds, assists, blocks, steals. Like,
So yeah, it was the 2015 Warriors, Warriors Cleveland series, and LeBron averaged 35.8 points a game, 13.3 rebounds a game, and 8.8 assists. He almost averaged a triple double in the finals.
So he was
That's
36,
that's
13,
insane.
and 9.
And you know who got the Finals MVP that year?
Oh, that was
For his
Iguodala
quote
because he
unquote
slowed him
defense.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
though
he
Steph
slowed him
Curry
down.
averaged
Good
about
job,
like
Iggy.
26, 5, and 6. That's insane. He slowed LeBron down. If Iguodala wasn't guarding LeBron, LeBron would have had probably 45 points. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I know. Good job, Iguodala. And don't forget that series gave birth to the "I want Iguodala" take
I want
because Steph.
Iguodala.
Yeah. Oh
Terrible.
God, that's
Terrible.
so. LeBron should have won that. Giannis right now, what's going for him is expectations create disappointment. And so when you see a guy who had what I thought was an awful injury, it looked bad when he
I
hyperextended
thought he
his
was
knee.
done. I thought he was done.
I
I
didn't think
thought
we were going to
the
see him
Bucks
next
were
season.
done. I didn't think that. I thought he was just done for the playoffs. I thought he was gonna have to recuperate and recover and be ready to go by the start of next season. But
Yeah,
I
no, I
definitely
was
didn't think
thinking
I'd see him in
All-Star
a
game.
game one of the NBA Finals, and on top of that, still put up about 20 and 17 in game one.
Yeah. I thought we were going to see him after the All-Star break next year. Like that's how bad it was. And then because I remember I was reading it, and then you and I were talking. I was like, yeah, no, if he's not playing, this is going to be bad. And then all of a sudden he's
Yeah,
like, I'm playing game one. I was like, I was ready for him to get the facts that said I'm back. I was like, you're seriously going to do this. And then, he
I
balled out.
yeah, he really
People look
did,
at it and they
and
just go
he's
20
continuing to
points. He
ball out.
balled.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Off of what you would think would be a bum knee, I honestly I just can't believe it. I thought when they said he's ready to go for game one, or he was doubtful, and then he was upgraded to questionable, and then he was playing. And when I saw that, I thought this isn't going to end well. I thought he was going to re-injure his knee, and I
I
thought he
thought
was
it
going
was
to
an
be done for
Anthony
the
Davis
finals.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Anthony Davis, and then go back to Kevin Durant when that same thing happened to him in the
Yeah.
finals. I thought that's how it was going to end up, but
Yeah.
he's
I was
looking
I
like
was literally
nothing is wrong with him right now.
I was thinking, you've seen history on us. Why are you doing this? And then that shows why I'm at home talking about him and he's out there making millions because he's
That
really
shows
good at it.
why
So
us fans who have barely any sports playing experience are talking about 7 foot Giannis, who's
exactly.
freak athlete, incredible player.
Exactly.
But
But so expectations, you didn't expect him to be here. So that's
yeah,
my thing. I didn't expect him to be in the series. The team maybe, but him, no. So for him to come back, dominate, and there's nobody on the Suns who's really doing anything. I mean, D-Book was benched the whole fourth quarter. You can't have a
yeah,
finals MVP who was benched for a whole quarter, not because they were blowing someone out. They were getting blown
getting
out.
blown out.
Chris
He was
Paul,
shooting
I
like,
mean, that'd be, oh, he was bad. He was
yeah, he was
bad. But
terrible.
Chris Paul, I mean, like, it'd be poetic for him to win it. I hope he wins it. He'll probably win it because, winning team, they usually get it. But I don't know. I've gone back and forth. I really think if it goes 7 and if Giannis leads every statistic for both teams, I would say the same thing I said for LeBron. And yeah, you got to give it to him. But you know what? If
Listen,
he's not leading in steals, if he's not leading in assists, you can't give it to him.
I would be advocate for giving it to him. I mean, we're all speaking so far in advance. The series is still game four is tonight, and it's in Milwaukee. But I would be advocate for giving it to Giannis. If they lost, they could still very much win this series. Going to be tough. That's a whole nother topic. Like I was saying, could be tough going back to Phoenix. But either way, if
Yeah.
LeBron won that Finals MVP back in 2015 when he led every single category, basically, if he won it, I would say, okay, if the Bucks lose this, Giannis continues to perform at the rate he's playing at, Giannis should get Finals MVP. But
That precedent is set.
yeah, the precedent is set. Finals MVP is always going to the team who wins the finals. That's it. That's just how I think it is, and I don't think it'll change. If LeBron won it, it would have changed, but nah, I don't think it's gonna change. But I also
Basketball.
don't like this topic because we're talking as if the Bucks already lost the series, and I think
I
most people
think
are
they
already
did.
saying, yeah, I
Yeah.
think most people are already saying that this is over. Especially just the way the Bucks play really well at home, but if it goes 7 games, they're gonna have to win in Phoenix. So
Yeah.
we'll see. It's gonna be interesting.
With people counting down when Giannis shoots free throws, I mean, they are such a bad free throw shooting team.
Hey,
It's
I will give
bad.
Giannis this. His confidence isn't blown. He goes to the free throw
Uh,
line and he doesn't care, and I love that about him. I love that video of him with PJ Tucker saying he's already been at the bottom. There's only going up from here. He's airballed free throws. He's bricked free throws. He's bricked and airballed three
yeah,
pointers. It doesn't phase him. That's what I love about Giannis's mentality, and it's
yeah,
the same mentality that Ben Simmons needs.
yeah. No, Giannis is great. Speaking of confidence, though, I want to shift over to first things first on the other side of the table. Brandon Marshall. Let's continue. Nick isn't always right. Brandon Marshall was a great receiver. I remember him on his Bears and Broncos days.
Hmm.
Jay Cutler throwing him the rock was awesome. I loved watching it. Jay was always just kind of like, and then Marshall was like, yeah, I'll grab it, dude. Like you chuck that thing 60 yards, I will grab it.
It's like
So Brandon
Ben's
Marshall,
Big Ben. AB's down
oh
there
yeah,
somewhere.
because you could rely on Marshall. And so Brandon Marshall, I think, is a great football mind. But then he starts getting into hypotheticals, and that's what killed it for me today on first things first. Brandon Marshall. There was the top 10 quarterback list that was released by NFL. They came out and they interviewed coaches, executives, all this other stuff, and they said, rank the quarterbacks. And so I'm not going to rank them for you. I'll give the top four. The top four was Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, and then Wilson. And now I have my own issues with the list. Marshall came out and he said, you know what? We always say that Wilson's underrated. Wilson's underrated. Let me be the guy. Wilson should be number one, not number four. And so let
Slow
I don't
down
even
for a
want to
bit.
pump the brakes. I want to step on them, stomp on them. We're on the freeway. We're going 90. We need to stop. You're going to hit something. You got to stop it, Marshall. Someone cut your brakes because you're not stopping. This guy doubled down. He was ranting. He was going crazy. And so to me, he went over this whole thing where, well, if you gave him, an offensive minded coach in Bruce Arians or the guy in Kansas City. Why am I blanking on Andy Reid's name? The great Andy Reid. I apologize. If you gave him one of him, they'd be great. He'd be throwing all this. He's the winningest quarterback since he came into the league. All true. The thing is, right now, though, I am not arguing that Wilson shouldn't be at four. I'm arguing that he shouldn't be at one. Because to me, I have guys always saying Brady's washed. Brady isn't doing this. Brady can't
Brady's
do
gonna
that.
fall off the cliff.
Brady can't run around. Brady can't do all this stuff. Okay, if he can't run around and if he's falling off that cliff, why is he going back to back Super Bowl? Like maybe not winning them, but he's going to them. He's
Yeah.
gone to more in the past 5 years than like 99% of quarterbacks have in their entire playing career. Like it's ridiculous. So to me, it's okay. Let's give Tom Brady Andy Reid. Nobody in their right mind thinks Bruce Arians is better than Andy Reid. Let's give him Andy Reid. And not only let's
Yeah.
give him Andy Reid, how about we give him Travis Kelce? Because Kelce is pretty close to Gronk in his prime.
Oh yeah.
And instead, he's thrown to a washed Gronk who's still pretty great and he's catching 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Like,
Hmm.
I don't understand how people grade it anymore. Like, are we going to
It's
say
tough.
Patrick Mahomes is the most talented? I'll agree with that. So
Yeah.
let's put him at one. But I'm telling you right now, I don't get how you put Wilson above any of those three.
I think what's tough is a lot of it is always based off of hypotheticals. It's like that's just the only thing is that that's not the case. You know what I mean? He's not on a team with a Gronk. He's not well, yeah, he's not on a team with a Gronk. He's not on a team with, the creative greatness mind of Andy Reid or Bill Belichick. I mean, nothing against Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's a great coach, but first of all, I don't know. A lot of it is just hypotheticals, and that's why I don't like some of these rankings because that's based off of hypotheticals. Nothing against Russ Wilson. I love Russ Wilson. I think he's a really great QB, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I can't imagine putting him above players like Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady.
I don't get how it's people are disrespecting Russell Wilson. Like
No one's
I always tell
disrespecting
you,
him.
this. How is it disrespectful to say you are the fourth best person in the entire planet at what you do?
I always think it's funny too because I do hear that a lot. I hear people saying Russell Wilson is underrated. Russell Wilson. Everyone says Russell Wilson is underrated. If
He's
everyone's
a top
saying
five
it, he's
quarterback.
not underrated. Yeah,
No.
he's not underrated at all. I think he's definitely top five quarterback in the league right now, and he even proved it last season. He had a great season last season,
Yeah.
beside until the
Like
end
week
when
13, he kind of slowed down, but like,
yeah, I mean, you can't even blame that on him. His line was just absolutely terrible. That's
yeah.
why he said, "Get me a line, or I'm trying to leave."
Yeah. See, but that's the thing. It's like I've seen Brady with bad lines and he still succeeds. Rodgers, he's always had a great line out in Green Bay. He
Yeah,
always has. Patrick
and
Mahomes, we
Rodgers has
finally
really good
see.
pocket awareness
Oh,
too.
well, Rodgers
The
is something
best,
else. Rodgers is something else, man. But you look at Mahomes, and it's like he finally doesn't have a line in the Super Bowl, and what happens? Can't even
dude.
score a
He
touchdown. Can't
guy
even
was
score a
guy
touchdown.
was running more yards than his running back.
Yeah, like so. It's always this guy doesn't have enough support. I saw Brady throw into guys named Julian Edelman and Wes Welker, and the only reason you know who they are is because of Brady. Like,
Yeah,
come on now, and then it's just stop doing hypotheticals with me. Let's look at where they're at. Let's see what they have, and based on that, you tell me what you think of them. And based on that, I think the top four is pretty solid. I wouldn't
yeah.
change it except maybe putting Brady ahead of Rodgers.
I
Maybe
can
Rodgers might be the better golfer. Who knows?
I can see the argument for both of Rodgers ahead or Tom Brady ahead of him, but yeah, I agree. I mean, nothing's wrong with being top four. You're not an underrated QB if you're the fourth ranked QB in the NFL.
No,
It doesn't make any
you're
sense to me.
you're
And
getting
yeah,
paid where you should. You're ranked by your peers where you should.
yeah,
Like I fail to see the disrespect. So B Marsh, come on, man. Let's calm down. I love Wilson. I do, but I can't put him above those other three guys.
yeah. I
Really?
don't think I could either.
I
Actually, I
don't know.
don't.
Enough
Not
about
don't think. I
quarterbacks.
definitely can't.
Yeah, enough about quarterbacks, Tyler. Let's move on to at the end of our shows, we always like to discuss a topic. You and I kind of debate it. We can call it our debate battle.
I would
Uh,
just like to interrupt you real quick. You said we always, as if we've been doing this our first episode.
this is our first, and we're going to be doing it. So always, it's an absolute yes. Pro Football Focus tweeted out who is the best receiver of the 21st century. So 21st century, 2000 to now, if they start 98, 99, I'll allow it. They had names like Fitzgerald, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Marvin Harris, Calvin
Calvin
Johnson. They
Johnson,
had all these guys.
Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown,
They've
yeah,
included Julio Jones on that list too.
they did. I wouldn't include them, but
I
they
wouldn't
did.
either, but
Tyler McGee,
yes.
best receiver of the 21st century. Who you got?
Randy Moss, baby.
Randy Moss. I'll
Yes,
tell you what.
sir.
I'll tell you what.
All right.
He's my 1B.
1B.
He's my
So who you got?
1B.
I'm assuming you're
One
gonna pick.
A, what so this is what was tough for me. I was looking at it, and
Mhm.
if I were to describe to you a diva receiver who sometimes got into altercations with either a coach or players or the media off-field
Talking about
stuff.
Antonio Brown?
No, well, that's a good one too. But around that time, he had to bounce teams because, whether he was having the issues or injury riddled, showed up in big games, played with some pretty great quarterbacks. I would think of Randy Moss, and right after that, Terrell Owens. And so
Interesting.
I got to go TO 1A.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't necessarily think that's like a bad take. I think I could go with either of them. They both have their iconic moments. Randy Moss has his three touchdown, insane stat line Thanksgiving game. Then you got Terrell Owens on the other end, who played a whole game with.
A
Go ahead and say
broken
it.
leg. He
There you go.
got
Yeah.
20 receptions in a game. He's over there on the Dallas Cowboys star. Like he's grabbing the popcorn. He is so much fun and iconic. And Randy Moss, I
Yeah.
mean, you want to talk about iconic moments. It's the three
No,
they posted every Thanksgiving. It's 3 receptions, 3 touchdowns. 100
That
yards and
okay, you
change.
want to talk
Like,
about that? They have a whole catch called getting mossed because of Randy Moss and what he did, jumping over defenders, reaching over and grabbing the ball. I mean, they were
have you
both
ever heard
really,
of the catch?
yeah, I mean, I have heard of the catch.
The catch, Joe Montana, Terrell Owens, and Steve Young have the catch too.
Mm, two.
Like
Yeah.
they're iconic. Like, yes, Randy Moss, you got Mossed. They're just two different receivers. And Randy Moss in his heyday, he was electric.
I would have loved to
He
have him
was
on my fantasy team.
dude, your fantasy team when he broke the record for 23
Yeah.
touchdowns in a season. Like, that's
Uh-huh.
just it's ridiculous. He's 6'4", he's lengthy, and he had sprinter speed.
Yeah, he
He
did.
was just ridiculous. He had great hands, as you could tell from Most. And when you think of him, T.O., this is where I don't like the argument. People say, oh, T.O. played a season longer, so obviously he has better stats than Randy Moss. T.O. played a season longer, but he actually only played one more game more than Randy Moss due to injuries.
Hmm.
So Randy Moss, 218 games. Terrell Owens, if you're good at math, 219 games. T.O., with one more game, had 1,078 receptions. Moss only had 908, well, only
Oh,
982.
that's it. That's all he
I know,
had.
only. That's all he
Jeez.
had, man. But you go over to receiving yards, T.O. has more, close to a little over 600 receptions or receiving yards more. Moss obviously has more receiving touchdowns because he just had that ridiculous speed,
Hmm.
156 to 153. Both have the same amount of Pro Bowls in 6. T.O. has one more All Pro than Moss, 5-4. Neither of them got a Super Bowl. Randy Moss should have. We're not going to talk about 2007.
Yeah.
And, I'll give Randy Moss, he won Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. I mean,
But
you
you
could
look at
also
it, it's similar.
discuss. You could discuss the QBs they had too.
See, but so you get to that, and you
Hmm.
have Randy Moss on the second best offense. We're not going to put it up against the greatest show on turf. Second best offense of all time with the greatest quarterback of all time finding you. So let's give Moss the nod towards quarterbacks because
Yeah.
Terrell Owens. Oh, also Moss had Dante Culpepper. Don't forget about that. T.O. had. Do you want to know who T.O. had? Tony
Who do
Romo.
you have? Yeah.
He had Tony
Wait.
Romo. Now he did have
Oh.
Steve Young at the end of his career,
Hmm.
but he had Tony Romo, Steve Young, and Donovan McNabb. And Donovan McNabb, he doesn't even talk to anymore.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. But I mean, yeah. I mean, oops. Accidentally clicked something on my laptop here. I personally don't think you could go wrong with either of the picks. I definitely think they could both be 1A. They're both really electric players. I wish I got to see them play in their primes. I wasn't really able to watch them, but yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
The one guy I thought about putting there, I truly did because I love him and I love his quarterback. I thought about Marvin
Oh,
Harrison,
okay.
sorry, Marvin
He wasn't.
Harrison.
He wasn't even on the list, was he? That they gave
He
us.
was. He
Was he?
was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, PFF put him on there. The one reason I cannot put him on there.
Hmm.
So Randy Moss, he was great with the Raiders. Well, not really the Raiders. He had a season that was good with the Raiders, but he was
He had
great
a
with
good
the
season with the
Vikings.
Raiders. Hmm.
He was great with the Vikings. He had 6,000 plus yard seasons.
Yeah.
He had double digit touchdowns. He did it with the Patriots. He was great wherever he went, except when, he went to go play for the Niners at the end of his career.
Yeah.
T.O., he's over here playing on a broken leg with Donovan McNabb, playing with Tony Romo, making him look like the all pro he was. Like, they were able to do it with everybody. And that's why I thought Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins were so good, because they were out there in Houston playing with the Texans and they had 9 quarterbacks a season. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Pretty
why they were
much.
so great. And so you look at Marvin Harrison. Are you great because of Peyton Manning? Or are you great because you played alongside Reggie Wayne, or vice versa? Was Reggie Wayne great because he played with Marvin Harrison? You don't know. And so that's kind of the
I think.
downside of playing with the same quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, that's tough arguments because I know that was a similar argument this season was Tunyon on the Packers, and it was like, is he great because he's playing with Rodgers, or is he a great tight end? And I know there was disappointment because he wasn't a Pro Bowler, and people were saying he was snubbed, and that's a similar argument you can make. But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to put that in perspective because it kind of discredits the player sometimes. You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, he played with a great quarterback, or no, I think he's just good. You know what I mean? That you can have a great quarterback and still not be good. So it's hard to
it's tough
because it kind of discredits them, in my opinion, sometimes. But
it does it is
even though I
tough.
brought
And
it up
so
to begin with.
and I love the Colts. I do. I think
Mhm.
Peyton's the top 4 quarterback of all time. I think Marvin Harrison is one of the best receivers of all time. It's just when I'm able to see Terrell Owens make Tony Romo look better, when I have Randy Moss, who is playing with the greatest quarterback of all time, he puts up record numbers when he's playing with him. You know what I mean? They elevate their quarterback. Not saying that Marvin didn't. I just wasn't able to see if he did or did not.
Yeah. Well, okay. Quick question, real quick. Who would you say is the best wide receiver in the league right now? We don't have to debate this. Just quick, give your answer.
I love Hopkins.
DeAndre Hopkins. I agree.
D Hop. I'm telling you, consistency. I'm able to see you do it everywhere you go.
Hmm.
You are a threat in the red zone. You're a threat deep. You're a threat when it's third and short.
Hmm.
Come on, man.
Yeah,
That's the guy.
I
Devontae
agree.
Adams is close, but
Oh, I love Devontae Adams, but yeah, I still think I'd have to go with DeAndre Hopkins. And I honestly think this season is going to be crazy because Kyler Murray's another year in. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play, even though I'm a Rams fan.
it's gonna be fun.
Not
And that
yet.
concludes our first episode of Our Factual Opinion. Tyler McGee, right alongside me, Zachary
Yes,
Nikolai.
sir.
You can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Play, Apple Music, you name it. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us, Our Factual Opinion. Also find us on Instagram and Twitter at Our Factual Opinion, Wednesdays and Fridays. We'll see you next time.
See you guys. Have a good one.
See you guys. Bye. What's that? Why
Bye.
you